welcome to our panel discussion on the future of experiential marketing and customer engagement. And we're really delighted to be a part of this panel, which is a part of Imagine, which is a 24-hour global virtual live festival. And it's a fundraiser, which makes it really special for us to be a part of it. And what we're going to talk about is really embedded in this context of how do we take what used to be a physical experience and now move it to the digital world in light of the restrictions that all of us are dealing with. And we're going to kind of explore this topic from a couple of perspectives. And for that, I do have a couple of very eminent panelists with me. But before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Jessie Paul. I'm the CEO of Paul Writer. And I've done many things in my life. I've been a chief marketing officer for a technology company. And for the last 10 years, I've been running a B2B marketing firm. But, my first love has actually always been events. From the time in my first job, I went to a trade show and, smelt that sawdust as they were hammering things into place, or my first event where I actually had to put together a cast iron standee on my own in Belgium. I've always loved the buzz of an event. And now, I'm really, really keen to see how do we take that excitement, that buzz, that energy, and the wine and the drinks and move that to a digital format. So I'd like to introduce you to my co-panelist, Deepali Nair, who probably does not need an introduction to most of you. She's a chief marketing officer for IBM India and South Asia. And apart from being a very dear friend of mine and a co-conspirator in many, many events over the last probably 15 years or so. So she has a very rich and diverse experience. And so we've interacted when she was heading marketing for L&T Insurance, also with Mahindra Holidays. And prior to that, she was with HSBC and handled brands like Saffola and Medicare. And, one of the things I like about having her on this panel is that she's always very, very outgoing and sharing in every event that she participates in. And over and above that, she also does a lot of mentoring, particularly for women as individuals, as well as, startups. And she's also started teaching in institutions. So great to see that kind of giving back and as a part of the overall engagement experience. So I think she brings a lot of perspective, both as a huge event organizer. I mean, IBM does probably more events in a day than most of us do in a year, but also as a very active and engaged participant in many conferences and events. So it's great having you here, Deepali. My next panelist is Piyush. And Piyush Gupta is the president of Keystone. And Keystone is a firm that is actually working to pioneer how do we change the way we do digital events. So he personally has been involved in working at a virtual experience platform, and Imagine is in many ways a culmination of some of those efforts of his. So Keystone has been around for many years, and it was acquired by, I think, Career Launcher around 8 years ago. And since then, he has been pivoting, it from being a leading integrated marketing services player to be a global growth engine. And they do have offices outside of India now in Singapore, Dubai, and the US. And I think what's really valuable from this panel perspective is that he brings a global perspective of how do you actually manage these experiences in the world. He has around 23 years of experience in this space, so very diverse. And I also see that he's a foodie, so something that all of us can connect with. And a definite asset for anyone who likes to do these things. So we're also going to talk about how is he going to deliver that amazing pizza in the virtual experience. So we're going to cover this and much more. So Deepali and Piyush, lovely having you today, and I do hope that we are able to, you know, get some value out of this for ourselves as well as for all the participants. I also just want to mention that I, as a moderator, would love it if you guys disagree. because that's when the panel gets exciting. So I'd really love it if you say, I totally disagree with what you said, Jesse or Piyush or Dipali. That makes it really much more exciting for everybody else. So bring in your diverse interests. Dipali, I see a bunch of books at the back. I'm sure that you're a voracious reader and have many perspectives from that as well. And Piyush, I know that you love to watch documentaries and autobiographies. So I think you'll enrich the experience with that as well. So with that, let's start the discussion with the elephant in the room. And what has COVID actually done to essentially your marketing program? So Dipali, if you want to take a shot at that, how has it changed conferences, events, experiential marketing, which must have been a very large chunk of your plans?
First of all, thank you, Jessie, for the very liberal introduction. And yes, a big hug to you. It's great to be back here. Now let's talk about the marketing bit that you asked. Of course, things have changed. But I just don't want to talk about what's happened at IBM. That, of course, I will. But I think I want to talk about what's happened to marketing around us, because I, as part of my role, talk to a lot of marketers, otherwise in the client companies that we have. And I notice, three changes. Okay. One is, let's say, let me give an example of services, which is, let's say, a restaurant service or a very, very experience-based service or a product. They, of course, are having a very difficult time. They need to completely reimagine their businesses, not just marketing. So a restaurant, especially fine dining, how do they deliver that gourmet experience at home, or they go out of business? I think is a question that they're asking themselves, right? Second is businesses such as us, or businesses such as, I was talking to, Vivek at Pidilite, or, let's say a FMCG company, Amul, or let's say SBI, who's, our very large clients. What's happening over there? I think their products are intact because they were all doing a digital journey, and their products are meant for home consumption or online consumption. So as far as the product is concerned, you don't have to reimagine the product, but how you're communicating and how you're getting the customer to experience you as a product has to change. On one side, you will have, of course, the SBI YONO platform, for example, completely ready, the ecosystem all in place. They've already done their tie-ups, and they were ready, at the time that COVID happened. Having said that, let's say, I think if you speak to, the Amul guys, they've done a lot of work in the distribution domain. They're relooking at some of the inventories and some of the products. I don't know, maybe the ice creams are doing better than the cheeses, or cheeses are doing better than ice creams. I think those are the kind of things that they're grappling with. At IBM, of course, I think what has changed is that the face-to-face element of the marketing communication bit has changed. And the second change that we've done is we have relooked at our product portfolio. There are many offerings. Jesse, you're aware that, IBM is present across the length and breadth of the technology stack, right? But some of the, cloud computing, for example, security, for example, our systems portfolio, these are the portfolios and offerings which are more, COVID-oriented. And that's where we've done a pivot in terms of the planning that we had. And we will talk about what has happened to face-to-face events, of course, the elephant in the room. Right? But the third and the very important thing, Jesse, some product services are doing fantastically well. So, Netflix, Amazon, all the OTT channels, the gaming, my son is a big gamer and he's on Fortnite all the time. These companies have not had to do any pivot at all, except for just plan for, massive growth. So that's also reality in terms of the experience marketing domain. I mean, look at the whole gaming world. It's all about experience marketing. And the last one, not the least, which is very important to all of us, is the education domain. What the schools have had to do in terms of the experience that they create for the children is an area that one must look at. So I just wanted to talk about all these things to say that, different categories have had different pivots in terms of the experiential marketing and overall, the way they're looking at marketing domains. One thing that is common across all these that I've spoken about, that a marketer is not just about marketing communications. I think a marketer has to partner the organization in looking at the business model and, partner the CIO, partner the CEO in terms of creating experience through technology today. So that's a good news. Of course, at IBM, we're extremely, delighted about the fact that all the digitization efforts that everybody was looking at have got accelerated, on account of COVID. Now, let me take a minute to talk to you about IBM. I think one of the most interesting things that happened to us was that in October last year, when there was no COVID, my team actually was talking about a fully virtual event because they said that's going to come in years to come, Dipali, but let's do something next year. And we have these internal awards, within IBM globally where you get recognized and that gets recognized as a best practice. So in October last year, we imagined a fully digital event, which we delivered in February of this year, pre-COVID, a 3,500 people event. It's a data and AI forum, and it's a very, very successful event in terms of generating leads in business. For us, we of course got the award. And COVID happened. But that's been a huge learning. And at IBM, we've gone on from very large virtual events to smaller events, mid-size events, and done events every quarter, and have learned, every event. And to answer, and of course, you must make Piyush answer the pizza, in the event. How is he going to deliver that? But I think I just want to say this. One interesting example comes to my mind, which is that last year we did the security summit, for example, and I still remember, during the event we had these guys, walking around with masks and talking about data security and theft and so on and so forth. And it's a very interesting interaction that we did. We had the Nimbu Mirchi, actually below the seats of people. These little tricks that you do to say, okay, if you're not going to be conscious about security, then you're really, leaving the security of your company to the Nimbu Mirchi, kind of a thing. How do you do that? How do you do that digitally? This year, for example, I think one interesting thing that the team did was we likened IBM security, preparation to how a Kaladi, a martial artist, prepares. What are the things that they look at? Internal, external, the strength of the security system that you have. And we delivered that experience. And that, of course, has again got awarded, with the engagement that we created, for IBM internally. My team is extremely delighted about the 2 awards that we won this year, therefore, from a, global CMO. We've taken inspiration from gaming, Jessie and Piyush, in terms of creating engagement. And we've taken inspiration from movies, and we say that, listen, if Disney can do it and if the gaming world can do it, I think we should also look at these things and say, apart from providing information, how do we do it? But I must also say that I think when audience set is coming to a webinar, they're also looking for information. The only thing that has changed is that they're looking at shorter bite-sized information. Nobody has that kind of time to sit through a 45-minute presentation, but your content is not changed. Your content still needs to be on point. It still needs to be educational, but yes, it needs to be bite-sized. Jessie, with that, I'm going to stop and hand it back.
That was really, really good. I'm actually going to take up from what you said, which is, the content, the information and education. And like I said, my job is to disagree with you both. So I actually feel that a person used to come to a physical experience, not just with education or learning in mind, but there were also a role for my identity. So I like to hang out with fellow security people. I felt important saying I've been invited to this thing. I also came in because of rewards and recognition. So, if I got a certificate or an award for showing up or whatever, I like that as well. I also came in perhaps with some bit of like a transactional thing. I have a problem. I want to meet the senior people there and complain about it. So I had a little bit of an agenda. I also perhaps came for social. I just wanted to hang out with my pals and have a drink. So I also came in for that. And really, education was a prime part, maybe 60% of it, but 40% was all of these other things. And if I look at a sponsor or an organizer's point of view, education was really not his part of the agenda. All the other things, particularly the transaction, was a really big part of it. So I'm going to ask you, Piyush, from the other side of the fence, how are you envisaging, a virtual experience platform that in some ways tries to deliver all of these things to the digital participant? Because, Dipali touched upon all the things that make a conference great and how you're trying to take it digital. But what about the bits that we don't normally think about, when we organize an event as to why the attendee is coming? Is that also possible in the digital world?
Okay, thank you, Jesse. I think thanks for the introduction also, and Dipali for setting the stage. I think you've put the experiential marketing piece really well on as a marketer. Uh, I'll probably break it down into a few aspects of how we are looking at it. So for us also, we've been doing virtual events for last 5 years now, not on our platform, but for some of our clients who are ready to take that up long time back. So we started work on this last year sometime. COVID happened, we accelerated it. What we've tried doing is, when we the objective in mind when we wanted to get into this was, can we make it as real as possible, right? Keeping in mind the content, which obviously plays a very very important role. Can I first deliver the content in the most effective manner? That's been the key on how we've approached it, right? And then the other aspects which form the experiential marketing, which is your the second part is the networking, which is can people connect with each other, and how much, till what extent. And the third is the engagement part of it. So primarily that's it. The fourth, which has been very very important and core to the platform, is the data, and I'll come to that in the second half of it. But so content delivery, we've covered it up. There are various ways to do it. Thankfully the tech is so advanced these days that it just is easy to kind of say, okay, here it is, we can go ahead and talk about what we want to, right? One thing that's happened overall, and we all have to agree to that, is if we had introduced this last year, right? If we wanted to go virtual last year, the acceptance around would have been not there, right? The good part about, if I can say, the good part about it is that all the stakeholders who are involved in the virtual piece of it, whether it is the organization who's doing it, whether the platform, whether the customers, partners, they don't have a choice but to kind of adapt to virtual. So hence the adaptability has been good. So hence consuming content has become easier online, right? Now come to the interactivity and networking. What we are trying to do is learn from the 20 plus years of experience on how do people behave in an event, right? What we can't, yeah, we're talking about pizza quite a bit of it, because one reason for a lot of people to be part of it is the smell of food. Can we take that? We can't. But we've tried doing it for one of our large clients in APJ. We actually tied up with one of the five-star hotels and delivered food, nice boxed food across the region, right? You won't imagine, the first 10 minutes of conversation was only about food, right? Leave everything else,
I'm
right?
not surprised.
So 10 minutes were people like, wow, and this was nice, and that was, and we were like, okay, fine, you finish it off, and then we start the event. So that's how it is, right? The networking and engagement. You rightly said that we come to showcase ourselves in some way, that we are here, we are present, and showing off is a little bit there in the current world, right? So hence what we've done is, how much can you be part of social media being on the platform, right? So we've integrated quite a bit of, so all social media handles are integrated in the platform. Your so when we started off, we thought, will a selfie booth make sense, right? And I'm personally not a fan of clicking photos myself, but you won't imagine, it's like taken up like this, where people want to say that I have been awarded, and the first thing is click and share that, yes, I've got an award. Now that's where the virtual world helps, that in the physical world you are taking a selfie and putting it across. Here you're actually doing that also, so that's helping. On the networking front, right? We were again, in the platform that we built in, there is we thought chat is good enough, but the moment we introduced a video, one-to-one video, for sales guys have been super delighted, right? Because what they're able to do is, at a click of a button, get into a separate room, have a conversation, to great extent close the deal and say, I'm happy, right? So from a marketer point of view, if you look at the ROI that one is looking for, is primarily, can I get my salespeople to connect with the customers and get the output or a sales done, right? So all these aspects have, we've managed to kind of, digital world has managed to do it, primarily because everyone has gone online. On the data front, you know, what has been beautifully put in the digital world, and not just us, I'm sure everyone else is also privy to the fact that now you can track everyone's movement across, right? What we can do is we can track what you're doing before the event also, but on the day of the event, if you are on the platform, I can tell you this is the person who's going to buy a product. It's as simple as that. I can point it out that talk to Mr. A, and this is the individual who's more likely to buy this product of yours, right? Without even talking to anyone, right? Now, that's what data can do, right? Who's getting engaged? So we've done over last 4 5 months, so we have a data science team. What we've done is we've measured the behavior of everyone on the platform and said who's going to which room, consuming content, chatting with which individual. Now all of that has given us a lot of input on when you're doing a event for a gaming community, what all should be part of it. So we now have a gaming arena, on the platform. One can just add to it and say, yes, let's have fun. So when we do a developer event and all, that's become a must now, right? Or an internal employee event. People want to come, so there is racing, there is soccer, there's so many of them, right? So people want to come, compete, showcase that yes, I have won, and then share it, right? So that's how it is. When you work with a CXO, CTO, then we know that okay, what is the level of content? Focus more on content and networking. So it's changed. It's a
So, Piyush,
pleasant.
I'm going to interrupt you because we're very low on time. But
Sure.
I want you to perhaps share if you have a live example that you're proud of, and maybe two, three learnings. And this is for you, Dipali, as well. Two, three takeaways that someone can incorporate into their own events. So, maybe Dipali, you start, and Piyush, and Piyush, if you can name the clients or an
Sure.
example case study, that would be, I think, real value for the participants as well.
Jesse, one of the areas that I, in a way, disagree, with both you and Piyush. I don't think food is the most important part of the conference. I know we're very fascinated with it, but I have not even focused on that. I think at IBM, there's no discussion that we've done in the last 10 months about recreating the food experience. I think what is my focus is that time has become very precious, and to keep people engaged, on a virtual platform is tough. So my focus has been that earlier we used to have 20-minute keynotes. Okay, can we do it in 8 minutes? Right? I
Hmm.
think that is where my learning has been, and that's what's really, yeah. Of course, soccer and cricket, but I'm trying to say, okay, not gaming, not for the sake of gaming, but gaming to deliver a message. Because that behavioral aspect can deliver a message. The third thing where I agree with Piyush, which is that there is a positivity to this whole thing, which is that the
Yeah.
data that's available to you in terms of what people are interested in, what they're listening to, what are the questions they raised, what is the kind of stuff they put down on the chat, and that data can be channelized. And the sales team should ideally, through marketing, through the help of the platform, pick it up. Not all platforms that are made available to us, I'm talking about a market, being a marketer, and all the different ecosystem of vendors that I have, not all platforms are great at engaging the customer one-on-one on the side. But yeah, I think that's a demand and a request that marketers ought to have from any platform that they are engaging with.
Great. Piyush, you want to add to that?
No, absolutely. I think yes, data part is very important. It's personal that I'm fascinated about. But for some of the brands that who've picked up and picked up the platform very well and used it to their advantage from a content, data, and networking point of view, Dell has done really well. I think Dell is one client who's been interacting on a virtual environment with their customers and their partners for a very very long time. That's there. And then actually all the tech brands, Microsoft is doing well, or AWS is something that we're doing a gaming summit there, and all of them again, like I said, it's the and I agree with Dipali on the messaging part of it, where anything that gets in, everyone wants to make sure that, whichever game we put in, right, whichever interactivity we put in, it is with a message. Absolutely. There's no doubt about that, right? And again, it differs from whom you're interacting with. If you're like I said, if you're interacting with a developer, you will interact, along with something which excites them, then energy gets channelized. I think that's how things are shaping up online for us.
Great. And, we have, I think, 3 minutes. So I want to also touch upon something which I have personally found useful is, it's tempting as a marketer to focus on the actual day of the event and build everything in. But in the current world where, as the Pali said, attention spans are, rather small, I feel you get value when you start the whole process prior to the actual D date, drip marketing, those things. So maybe if you could touch upon anything that's worked for you and, how you're conceptualizing the experience now. And, a quick answer, perhaps, Dipali and Piyush.
Go ahead.
See, I'm looking for a lot of answers over there. I think the pre event and the post event experience can be made much better. I think we're still dependent on uh, emails and the integration of maybe SMSs into the whole thing, and similarly the post experiences being download a PDF and so on and so forth. So there I'm looking for ideas, frankly, and I do think that the nurture domain after the event can be strengthened, made more personalized, and innovation can be done over there. So over to you, Piyush, if you have some interesting suggestions and examples there.
So, what we've done, over the past also and now also is that, as an organization, we have a large telemarketing arm, right, and a digital arm, and content obviously is there from a design piece of it. Right? Most of the brands have managed to do is, say, okay, here is the target audience that you're looking at, right? I need these new accounts, I need these new territories, so on and so forth, right? What we've managed to do, and thanks to the tele and digital teams that are integrated, is that this process starts from identifying the objective, who all you want, and then first using the digital marketing, the whole journey of it, then moving on to the tele piece, which is
But Piyush,
close.
that's where I'm looking for innovation. See, I mean, the whole telecalling, the whole emailing remains the
Absolutely.
same. There's no difference over there. People, senior folks that we want to talk to, CIOs, let's say, for example, are not going to be very happy them getting a call from a telecaller, right? So that's where I meant that, is there a technological innovation happening there where we can move away from the email spam and the tele spam and the SMS spam?
See, I would say, if I can chip in something that I've been playing around with for a while is a community, right? So trying to build a post-event community. And I don't know, but Piyush, have you also tried the Dipali? It works for me. I don't know if it's worked for others.
No, it does. So, see, your tools will more or less remain the same, right? Fortunately, unfortunately, that's how it is. You look at it, when digital came in, everyone took over digital and moved in, and then had that own bit of innovation, customization, right? Yes, how you put it across to people matters. And from what we've done is, in the current scenario over last 4 5 months, for the top guys, we don't do a event related conversation at all. That's not there, which is there. The account based marketing has approached in a very different way for, when we are talking for our clients, where the top CIOs or CTOs whom we are talking to are not really where we are inviting them for an event. We are basically saying, let's do a one-to-one conversation with the sales director of a brand along with the CTO, and can we kind of arrange that piece of it? A lot more of that that's happening. For that, you don't need a platform per se, but that's still a digital environment that's put in.
Absolutely.
After that is when you kind of get them to a focus group discussion. Those are much smaller. Those are not the 500 or 1,000 people event when you're talking to the top bracket. So it kind of changes. So the tools won't change, the Dipali, actually, but it's more of whom you're talking to and what is that you're offering. That's how it works. The moment you go a C minus one, is when some of these tools come in the picture,
That
right?
one. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's
Yeah, but
that's where
Jesse, to answer your issue that you mentioned on community, I do think what you've done there is a great job, and I think brands forming communities is a tough one. Very few brands have succeeded over there. Harley Davidson is the only brand that comes to my mind, where they managed to do that. Maybe Nike for a few things and a few, few games and situations. But I think if there's evangelism behind a cause or learning or an activity, then it is typically led by somebody who's extremely passionate. So the influencer marketing and community building, according to me, goes together. So therefore, you will succeed, Jesse, as an evangelist when you create a community. But IBM or any other brand may find it tougher because I think the people sitting on the other side are very rational about these things, and they know that brands will eventually, try and promote their products, services, so on and so forth. So I think the solution there is that can we get into pre-existing communities and work with them to genuinely work on the learning piece. I think the one area that at IBM we would love to do and we try and do is talk about futuristic technologies or when we use the technology for doing some good for the society. And I think that's the area where evangelism and community building can be done. Not to say that some of our efforts are not succeeding, they are, but I will keep them to myself for now.
Okay, we're out of time, and you both talked about how people like to keep things snappy. So I am going to have to wrap this up. But I think we've covered a lot of ground, and I had a number of takeaways for myself. So thanks so much for that. Also, thanks for not agreeing with each other all the time because that made it much more exciting for me. And I hope the participants enjoy that.